Hey, you. Why haven't you subscribed yet? Hit the subscribe button and the bell. Enjoy the video.
After further review, our weekly talk with Mike Detillier is brought to you by the one and only New Orleans original, Cesarac Rye Whiskey.
I'm Mike D and I get respect.
You know, once you feed the little puppies enough, they get to be the big dog.
Hour 2, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Paul O'Neal.
They're chanting Paul O'Neal's name.
The Brain.
Hey, the brain got a poop.
And as we do every Thursday here in Hour 2, we welcome aboard the one and only Mike Detillier. SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, on Twitter at Mike Detillier. Part of the Saints News Network over at SI.com, and with us here every Thursday. Mike D, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Matt.
Mike, we got a ton to delve into, man, and obviously the Saints and LSU both now won't play this weekend, which we'll get to, but I wanted to start. I'd be remiss if I didn't. I wanted to ask your thoughts on the passing of a Pro Football Hall of Famer with Fred Dean's untimely passing.
Man,
yeah.
Matt, I think about it. There are very few people that you get to meet in life that they are what people tell you they are. You know, and growing up as a teenager, I saw Fred play at Louisiana Tech. He was a four-time that's when Louisiana Tech was in the Southland Conference. He was a four-time All-Southland Conference, two-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Southland. Goes to the Chargers, just a great player. Then he gets traded to the 49ers. Man, and I always told him he had the horseshoe up the right side because he goes to a team that's playing in Super Bowls with Bill Walsh. And so he retires from the game. And this is right after 9/11, the Super Bowl right after the Patriots start their run. They play the Rams on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm doing a show with Buddy D at Harrah's. Fred Dean walks in, and I had met him a few times. Buddy knew him also, and so he comes sit down, and you start asking somebody questions, and man, you've been through that if you're on the air like we are. You get a 1-sentence, 1.5 sentence answer, and you say, man, this is going to be a long, long interview here. And so Buddy used to have a comment about sometimes you got to be like you working at a deli. You got to put him a little bit more roast beef on the sandwich for him to take a chomp on. So we loaded up about how the draft is different today than it was when Fred came out in 1975, and talking about things I do, how it's covered everything else. And all of a sudden, Fred opens up, and he was like, man, you're right about that. It was a late January draft. That's when the draft was, the final couple of days of January. It was a Tuesday. He said, that was no TV coverage. That wasn't no ESPN. And he said, he made a funny line that I heard. He said, I don't know if this is true. There's only one radio station that covered it, and that was WFAN out of New York. And he said, all I know is we couldn't catch WFAN New York in Ruston, Louisiana. And so he goes on to say that he had been told probably a second-round pick. But he went to class as normal, and he said, come 11:30, he had enough. He said, just eating away at me. So he said, I went to the football offices, and so my coach told me, he said, listen, round one's over with. You'll be picked in round two most likely, but he said, just kind of hang around. He said, the team that had gotten in touch with me the most in the days leading up to the draft was the New Orleans Saints. So he said, my thought was, man, I grew up in Louisiana, Ruston High School, went to Louisiana Tech, and I get to play for the Saints? That would be, pretty good. Mm-hmm. And he said, we didn't hear anything. All of a sudden, the phone rings, and my coach hands me the phone. He says, it's the Dallas Cowboys. So he said, I pick up the phone, I'm talking to them. They say, listen, we're trying to trade up in round 2 to get you. So stay where you're at. We're going to call you right back if we can pull this trade off. Man, he said, I start thinking about, man, for my family to visit me from Ruston to Dallas, that's not, ain't a far ride either. So he said, everything's going through my head. So I'm talking to my coach about it, and he said, they picked this guy, Randy White from Maryland. He said, I saw him play. He's pretty good. He said, but I don't know anything about who that second first-round pick is. A guy by the name of Thomas Henderson from Langston College. And, Fred said, man, I didn't even know they had a Langston College. So he said, never knowing that, Hollywood Henderson would end up being a pretty big player in the NFL. So he said the phone rings right afterwards, and he said my coach just immediately gave me the phone. And he said it's the owner of the Chargers, Gene Klein, saying, Fred, we've selected you. You're going to be a member of the San Diego Chargers. And he was like, man, okay. He said, listen, stay where you're at. He said, we're going to give you a call back. You'll get in touch with the coach, and we'll put you with your position coach also, but we want to have a few minutes with you. So, man, I was so thrilled. I called my family, let them know I'd been selected by the Chargers. And he said, I asked my coach, I guess they must have picked me ahead of the Saints, right? And he said, I don't know where the Saints picked that in round 2. He said, well, they told me, I think that they had like the 6th pick in round 2. And so he said, well, I don't know. So he said, no big deal. He said, next day I got to go back to take pictures with my coach and everything at Louisiana Tech. He said, I look in the paper and I see Saints with the 6th pick in the draft pick a center from Auburn by the name of Lee Gross. The 7th pick in the draft, San Diego Chargers, Fred Dean, Louisiana Tech. And he said, man, I started thinking about, man, this guy Gross, he must be a really good player. Because they called me like 3 different times to tell me they were going to pick me, and they passed on me to pick this guy Gross. He must be a really good player. So he said, I go to San Diego, and he said, I'm talking to the guys there. And he said, one of my, the offensive line coach for the Chargers come up to me, and he was like, man, I'm glad you're on this football team. I said, man, me too. He said, it's great. I said, man, Mike, compare San Diego. You driving down those streets, and the Pacific is right there. Compare that to Ruston, Louisiana. He said, you know about a culture shock. That was it. And he said, bang, bang. He said that coach said, Lee Gross, he failed our physical. He's had 4 different knee operations. And he said, man, I'm thinking about it. He said, come to find out, Lee Gross plays 1 year as a backup center with the Saints, gets cut, never plays again in the NFL. Fred Dean becomes a all-pro player with the San Diego Chargers and then with the 49ers. But he said, you know what, I never forgot it. He said, we didn't play the Saints a lot when I was with the Chargers. But he said, man, when I was with the 49ers, we played them twice a year. And he said, 1973, I got 17 sacks. And he said, in one game, I got 6 against the Saints. And he said, I pounded them every time I get a shot. And he said, I had a shot to get 7, but he said, Snake somehow slithered away from it, and he got the ball off. But he said, I got 6 sacks in that game against the Saints. I made him pay for picking this guy, Lee Gross. But that was the only time you got any sort of emotion from Fred, because that sort of ticked him a little bit that the Saints thought he was a better player. I just told him, listen, Fred, if we went through that litany, man, we'd be here for a long time telling you guys the Saints passed over for Hall of Fame players. And he laughed about it. He said, I get it. But he said, man, it was personal to me. But he was one of the most humble guys. If you did not know he was an NFL Hall of Famer, you would never guess by his demeanor. Very soft-spoken, a guy that was a sub 4.5 40-yard dash guy at 240 pounds. And he teased me toward the end. I got to see him a year ago at one of the camps, and he said, guess what? I played with the Chargers. I never saw that second number of 5. I played at either 235 or 245. Played defensive end in this league. And so, God bless him. He was a great guy. He was sort of bigger than life for guys that was around him. And he talked to a group of about 300 kids, and none of them knew who he was. So I'm Fred Dean, played with the 49ers, won a couple of Super Bowls, played with the Chargers. I'm in the College Football Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame. But he said, I got one thing a lot of people don't have. He had me hold a package. I gave him the package. He pulled it out. It was the gold jacket. That was Fred Dean. He was quite a guy, really, and 68 years old. Yeah. As we getting older, 68 don't seem that old no more.
That's true.
But he was a great guy.
Mike Detillier, some great thoughts. Mike, one of the guys I'm checking here on the Bayou Forward YouTube chat, Theodore Long said, man, where the hell does Mike D get all these stories? I mean, Mike, you got a whole book of them, man, probably multiple books.
You know what my wife tells me all the time? She says, you have lived the life of 4 guys, and one day those 3 other guys are going to come collect.
Well, in the meantime, we'll just keep calling you on Thursdays, Mike, and we'll love the hell out of it, man. Let me knock out a quick break, Mike. We'll come back. We appreciate you sharing some of those personal recollections of Hall of Famer Fred Dean, who died today at the age of 68. We'll come back. We continue with Mike Detillier, and certainly we thank our friends over at Sazerac Rye, the official whiskey of AFR, for hosting us at the Sazerac House on Monday for Monday Night Football. We had an awesome time. Mike, the Saints pulled out a win on Monday Night Football, but they certainly are making it harder on themselves than they need to. Let's talk about the game, but also the situation with Mike Thomas and what you can tell us there. It looked like he was healthy and was going to play, and then there was this fight, and then he didn't play, and now he's saying he had a setback. What do you make of all that's happening with Michael Thomas?
Well, I think you're dealing with someone here who's a little sensitive toward things, not a little. I've been around Mike. I've done events with him. Very soft-spoken guy, very pleasant, not demonstrative in any way. Put him on the football field, practice field, he's a different guy, very competitive. He's high-strung, live wire, no insulation. But you got to know who you're messing with in life. Listen, you pick a fight with somebody, you better know your opponent. And so, this came to be, when I first read this story about he got suspended because of a fight in practice, my thing is, man, I've seen hundreds of fights in practice. You got to be kidding me. Ain't nobody gets suspended or fined because of a fight in practice. That ain't the case. And then, we find out a little bit of altercation afterwards in the locker room and a sort of a challenge to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And, one thing led to another, and coaches get involved, and, his temper took over. A lot of shouting and a lot of things said, and that was that, and so you get the suspension. I don't believe none of this stuff about no setback. Come on, that's great and fine to put on the social media, and I get it. But all systems looked as though he was going to play.
Yeah,
everything looked to be in that manner. And Sean's old school about it. I've been around, veteran players. Man, they talk about fights that happen all the time. But normally, in years past, once that fight was over with, it's over with. He's still my teammate. We still going to battle together. And it's finished. Mike couldn't let it be. He just could not let it be. And he stoked the fires again. And at that point, Sean did what he had to do. Now, will this be a lingering effect? I doubt it. I think Mike's mature enough. He understands that he did wrong here, and you just got to let it go. Here's my thought about it is, if a teammate gets under your skin, what do you think's going to happen in the game?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that guy is going to run his mouth and talk to you all kind of trash too? So this is much more than a fight in practice. And I get it. That was the initial comments. But, you're finding out a little bit more and more about it, that this sort of escalated into the locker room in another confrontation, and coaches getting involved in everything else. And you got to let that go. And you can't be verbally confronting coaches at this stage. They are your boss. They're the boss. So when they say it's over, it's over. You might not like it to be over, but it's over. Cool down, get it over with, and it's finished. But, having been around Mike a little bit, and I'll say a little bit, not a lot, but in a couple of events, he's not one of these guys that is always talking trash and everything else. In fact, he's just the opposite. He's a low-key guy, doesn't say a lot, and that sort of thing. So I think this shall pass. It's an incident. Sean, I think, dealt with it very well and handled it the best he could. You find somebody, that's not a lot of money. Not when you're making the kind of money Mike Thomas makes. That's not a ton of money at that stage. And so, you got to move on with it. He's a big piece of the puzzle for this football team to move on. So Mike's got to settle it. And also, I think from Sean's standpoint, he's got to kind of piece that together also about, hey, let's keep some harmony on this team. We don't need this fraction on our football team right now. We've been through too damn much this offseason. We got enough stuff to worry about much less to worry about this. We got to move on from this, and that's going to be the way it's going to be team-wise. I will say there will be repercussions because other defensive backs hear it. And they say, I can get under his skin that way.
Mike, in spite of some of the slow starts and in spite of Thomas's absence, the offense at times has found its footing. The problem has been, obviously, the defense hasn't been what we thought they were going to be this year. What do you attribute that to? I mean, is that fair?
No, it's very fair because you returned so many of your people from a year ago. And the breakdowns, everybody's pointing the finger at the cornerbacks. They forget that the guy over the top is making mistakes too. He's not covering the guy when he thinks he's got help. It's almost like LSU. You can point the finger at one guy, but the safety didn't pick up his person. And what you see more and more of in college and pro football is all the mental mistakes in the coverage standpoint. Man, a ton of them. Passing players on or in a double move situation. You think you got help over the top with a safety and you don't have it. He's running up the seam, taking the play action fake. Linebackers are getting exposed at every level for their inability to match up downfield in the coverage standpoint. It's the changing part of the NFL. And it's just not happened to the Saints. Man, I watched the Chiefs and the Raiders. They took full advantage of the Chiefs could not match up against them. They just couldn't. You see games like that. You look at the Titans, the way they attacked the Bills in a very similar way, running a lot of crossing patterns. So, okay, I got him, now you got him, and somebody better get him. He's 10, 15 yards downfield. Matt, it's part of the NFL. It's part of college football. We better get used to. Now, I do think early on the offenses have had the huge advantage. But as the days get a little cooler, come late October into November, the defenses are going to kick in. It'll take a little while, but the defenses are going to kick in, and you're not going to see these 40 to 35 games. It's going to be the 24-20 games, 28-20 games. You're not going to be seeing these games in abundance like you see now into the 30s and 40s. It just has taken a while for these defenses to come together, and there's a lot of communication issues that you would think on a veteran team you wouldn't have, and yet you've got it. It's part of 2020. No spring, no OTAs, nothing. And it's the reality check that it's not a light switch. You can't flip it on and off at the NFL level. It's about practicing, and one thing about practice, it ain't like a real game. You might be able to do it in practice, but guess what? When you practice, you don't have referees. So, that guy made a great cover. Well, you didn't see the fact that he was pulling and tugging on his arm and stuff either. So that part of the game is lacking at the NFL level, not just with the Saints across the board. We see it more with the Saints because that's what we're watching more. But I see it all across the NFL. But the mental mistakes, coverage-wise, is glaring. It is the biggest shock to me for both college and pro football of how many mistakes from a coverage standpoint that you see today. And it's not like game one or game two. You're into the season now, and you're still seeing it. But I do believe as it gets a little cooler, and you get a few games under your belt, the defenses will start to catch up.
Man, it's an interesting theory, Mike. I'd love to see it. A couple of things just in particular about as the Saints move forward. I'm also curious, when Deontay Harris comes back, Mike, Marquez Callaway certainly made an impression on Monday night. Has he found himself a more, I don't want to say permanent, but solid role on this team, Callaway?
Anybody who got my draft book saw where I rated Marquez.
Yeah.
I was shocked he was not picked.
Me too.
I covered him at Tennessee. I see some of these guys. Well, he don't come out of his break real smooth and real clean, and he drifts. Have you seen the Tennessee quarterbacks in the time frame? I mean, them guys, they're not playing for all SEC honors. That's all I know. They were all over the board, and yet he averaged over 19 yards a catch. He is a compact, well-built receiver, got really good foot speed. He's got gears, speed gears he can kick into in the open field. He's a tough guy. The punt kick return duties are Deontay's because he's sort of special in that area. Where I think it's becoming more and more apparent is that he's on the same page as Drew Brees. And Drew looks for him and finds him downfield for a rookie. Now I'm talking about an undrafted free agent rookie that he's finding downfield. He's found a spot on this football team. We always knew that he could block. You know, when you play in an SEC team, you got to be a blocker as a receiver. That's just part of the game. You learn how to do real quickly. And he's becoming a better route runner. But he's got some athletic skills that jump out at you. And he's a tough dude. Man, he's not afraid to come over the middle to make a catch. And I'm very pleasantly surprised in year one the progress he has made, and also to the confidence that Drew Brees has in him, that he looks in his area. You would think he was going to look for the veteran, right?
Yeah.
That's who he's going to look for. He's played on 3 years with you look at Traquan. Emmanuel Sanders, you know, he found certainly his groove on this football team. He's had some time certainly with Jared Cook, but he doesn't have a lot of time. You know, and that's not a lot of rep work with Callaway because he's not working with the ones. But look how well he's adapted to that. Man, the Saints got themselves something in Callaway here. You can tell. I mean, he's a player, and he can also help you with, I don't know how quickly Deontay will come back from the hamstring because that sometimes is a lingering injury. But if you've got an issue, he can do it. In practice one time, he was returning punts, and it was a bad day at practice to play him. Mm-hmm. And he's looking to catch it, and it hits his visor, and it bounces like 10 yards forward. And then they got him on the hands team for onside kicks, so they practice an onside kicks, and he goes to catch it, and the ball goes through his legs and goes out of bounds. And you can distinctly hear Sean Payton on the sidelines. He's tweet, tweet, tweet. Hey, guys, I want your attention. This drill is made for you to recover the onside kick. And it was a bad day at the office.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been through that, and Callaway had a bad day. But let me tell you, he's a guy that's got NFL pedigree. I mean, you can see that he can play at this level. And early on, he's shown the mark that I think he's got a chance to be a guy that can put up some nice numbers as a rookie.
Mike Detillier is with us. We'll knock out a quick break. We'll switch gears to the Tigers when we come back, Mike. Another bad day defensively at the office, but a day off on Saturday might be just what the doctor ordered. We'll continue with Mike Detillier. We'll talk about how the LSU Tigers can get it right. Stick around. It's AFR. All right, we continue with Mike Detillier, SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com. Make sure you're following him on Twitter at Mike Detillier, and, of course, Saints News Network, part of SI.com. Mike, LSU's defense, I don't think anybody expected it to be what it was a year ago. I don't think anybody thought they'd be 1-2 through 3 games, and having been as historically bad as they've been, what in the world is wrong with them defensively right now to where they are this seemingly incompetent?
Well, first things first. You got a first down inside the 1-yard line, and you line it up in the shotgun. And this is my complaint about doing that, since I've seen other teams do it too.
Yeah.
Why are you having that quarterback take the football 5-6 yards, to move forward? So we had Coach O on with us earlier in the week and started questioning him. He was like, man, you know what we should have done? Just get the guy under center and do the Bush push. And you said we could have done it 4 times and we could have got in. I think, Matt, that's part of this, that too. Not understanding. Somebody in that booth got to know something about the fact they are missing their 2 starting defensive tackles. Their rotation guy got hurt. And again, you can't get it in from the 1-yard line with 2 rushing plays, but I do not like that at all. And I think there will probably be some changes made. Come on, you got to have a short yardage package where your quarterback's under center, where you can get that half yard or whatever. That to me, we would still be complaining today, but you'd have a W.
Mike, I feel that way about Mississippi State as well. I mean, you led or you were tied in that ball game with 9 minutes to go, and you had the football. I mean, you had chances to win both of those games. But you're right. There would be issues, but you'd be 3-0 And working through those
Okay.
issues at 3-0 is much better than where they are at 1-2.
I do talk show radio in Alabama. They got people bitching and complaining 24/7 there about their defense. But you know
Yeah.
what? You're undefeated.
Yeah.
Okay, you're still winning. That's what this game's all about. I ain't looking for style points. I'm looking for a W. Defensively, you can see, I think the thing that irritates probably Coach Orgeron more than anything is the fact that Missouri could run the ball.
Yep.
I mean, okay.
So could Vanderbilt, Mike.
And Vanderbilt did a pretty good job of it, too. Here's my thing. You got to stop the run first. This is a physical game, and you got to run the football, and you got to stop the run. It's old-fashioned football, but it's a winning brand that you have to do. I understand throwing the football, but, okay, Missouri's down a couple of defensive tackles, and you got no push up front. Nothing up front along the offensive line. And then to stop the run, and I'm talking about not no little holes, I'm talking about big holes these runners are running through. That's got to be irritating because you gather that there's some confusion in the secondary. Anybody could see that. But, man, you got to stop the run. You got to make a team one-dimensional. Second thing is, Connor Bozolak could have played Sunday with the same jersey and pants that he had on the Saturday. No scuff, no nothing. He stood back there. It was like a skeleton drill. He was just pitching the ball. Ain't nobody was around him. Nobody. And now we're talking about Missouri. They don't have the 5 blocks of granite blocking for them. And LSU could get zero pressure on Bozolak. Virtually nothing. He was just spinning it. Now, you see more and more in this league, which looks a lot like what the other leagues are today, all these crossing patterns where, okay, I got him, now you got him. Oh, well, you're supposed to get him, and he's running free downfield. And I thought the announcer for the game had the right comment about LSU is biting on all this eye candy, all this motion, all this fake sort of deal. No, you got to stay with your man. You got to be disciplined. You can't let your eyes drift into the backfield and follow the quarterback because your man's running downfield alone. And so mental mistakes. And I think a lot of times with veteran coaches, that thought is, I'm going to get my system in no matter what. I'm going to put my system in and it's going to work. If you'd have had this spring, I say maybe, I just say maybe, it could have worked. But it is becoming evident that it is way too complicated for these guys today. Yeah. Way too complicated for them. The second part is shared experiences on a football field when it gets bad. That 2019 had shared experiences of bad moments, fighting through moments when you lose to Troy, bad games against Alabama, losing close game to Florida. You had those shared experiences where that veteran guy, hey, this isn't going to happen anymore. Who's saying that in that huddle today? Maybe Jacoby Stevens could, but the only, I don't know what the other 10 guys looking at him would say. You know, there's not a lot of guys that were playing prominent roles. So you got, losing got a lot of fathers to it. Really does. And now he's got a lot of fathers. And everybody wants to blame the coach. It's the same thing when you do stuff in Gainesville. They want to blame Grantham. He's a horrible coach. How come you pay him $2.5 million a year? Oh, it's Pete Golding at Alabama. He's the worst defensive coordinator ever. Really? Is he the worst defensive coordinator? Guess who his boss is? The greatest defensive mind we've seen in college football. If he could fix it, you don't think he could? Okay? So it's not Golding's fault. It's not Granham's fault. Now, again, sometimes as these veteran coordinators get locked into what they want to do, sometimes it's overload for a young player. And so you got to simplify the system, and that's what Pelini's got to do here. And all this foolishness about firing, okay, we living in a pandemic, okay? You're not getting rid of a coach that's making over $2 million a year. And he's Ed's head-picked man. Ed had a choice of picking a lot of guys. He picked Bo Pelini. So this foolishness that you see, oh, they're going to fire him mid-season. Come on. Be real. Now, I'm not saying down the line that something could occur, but that's not happening now. Bo's got to fix it defensively. He's got to be able to fix it. And some of that, too, is simplifying what you're trying to do and to get guys to understand what to do on every play. Not part of the time, not half the time, all the time, what to do. And this team's got to come up with a better pass rush. It's too inconsistent that you see it every once in a while, and Ali Gay shows up, and then what happened to Ali Gay against Missouri? You know, he wasn't the terror coming off the edge. Again, it's a lack of pass rushers across the board in the SEC, and it's all catching up. People that are my age or a little younger, a little older, the days of 13-10 games, 16-10 games, they memories. You're never going to see it again. It's what you're seeing today is the SEC from now to the day you take that final breath. They looking like every other conference out there. It's shootouts every game. You don't have enough pass rushers, and you don't have enough good cover people. Bottom line, it's a personnel issue, and again, it's part of trying to get something that works right. Who has been immune so far in the SEC?
You could maybe say Georgia, but
and
a little.
A little. Let's see what happens Saturday.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, I heard it last year, you too, Matt. Oh, man, the great Georgia Bulldogs. Wait till they play LSU in the SEC championship game. Number one defense in the SEC, one of the top defenses in college football. They're going to slow it down. Man, they got their tails kicked from one end to the other. They found out you can't match up against everybody. Wait till Georgia goes up against Waddle, and they got Devontae. And then when you bring the safeties to play back, man, they hand the football off to that 230-pound running back who pounds the ever-loving crud out of you as a runner. So this is part of the SEC that a lot of people don't like to see, but it's reality. That, Matt, we're going to see this from now to the day we stop covering this game, that it's part of that is not going to change. And Ed told us Tuesday night, you know, I thought we could score 30-something points a game, maybe give up 20-something points a game, and we'd win that way. You may have to up the ante on what you score and what they scoring, because right now you've got nothing defensively you can hang your hat on. You can't stop the run, and you're not playing well in coverage. Guys not understanding what to do. And you like that big-time pass rush on a consistent basis. And you can get a little bit better. I always think that way. You can get better, but it's not going to jump dramatically. And we'll see how great the Georgia defense is when they play Alabama.
Yeah,
We'll just see, because, again, everyone told me, oh, man, I don't know about LSU going up against Georgia. That defense is unbelievable. Well, they were still playing. They still couldn't do anything stopping that offense. It is part of this game that's not going to change. Not in our lifetime.
Mike Detillier is with us, SaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com. Mike, let's knock out our last break. We'll come back. Wrap it up with Mike Detillier. We get to your questions for Mike. That's how we always wrap up. You can email us, Matt at 1045ESPN.com. Tweet us at Matt Moscona, or jump in the Bayou Ford YouTube chat to get your questions asked to Mike. Mike, I'll start. Saints going to play in Tiger Stadium?
I think they will.
Interesting. When?
I don't know, but I did hear the mayor. All I'm doing is reading her own words. She got no issue with them playing in Baton Rouge, right?
Yeah.
Or if I'm the Saints, good enough. We off. Again, here's my thing with the mayor of New Orleans. That back in July, she said there would be no major event in the city of New Orleans this year. When she got pressed about it in another press conference a couple of weeks later, possibly about the Saints, we'll see, maybe, something would change and we'll look at it. My thing is, okay, I can deal with the truth. Just tell me the truth. Are we going to be able to play or not? If you're telling me no, then we're going to go to Baton Rouge. End of the story. But it's the hemming and hawing, and also, too, we all know this is about funding. Okay? federal funds that went to the state that she feels as though she wants a bigger share of. Bottom line. When they say it ain't about the money, I heard her make the comment about she feels like she's like Cuba Gooding. Show me the money. Now, I'm just paraphrasing exactly her comments. She is looking for her money. And about the thing about, they don't play games in a dome stadium. Come on. It's ridiculous. My thing is, just tell us. Just tell the Saints, tell the public, I don't think we should play this year in the dome. Okay, if that's the case, then the Saints go to Baton Rouge and play. And basically what she said today is sort of opening that door, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I think it might have been a leverage move
to
see what she would say. But, again, I don't think they showed her the check yet.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. All right, let's get some questions here. Brian Fletcher asked Mike, why didn't the Saints move up for Kenneth Murray? He says once he develops a pass rush, he'll be like Lawrence Taylor.
Well, I only seen one Lawrence Taylor in my life, so I don't know about that part. I do know one thing. The Chargers moved one pick ahead of the Saints because they thought they were going to pick him. Now, again, I'm not in that war room to say what the Saints would have done and what they wouldn't have done. I think Kenneth Murray's a heck of a football player. I know we sort of previewed that when LSU played Oklahoma, and he was the one guy that, every play he's around the football. And he does make some freelance mistakes, but he's got a chance to be a Pro Bowl football player. Now, I've only seen one LT, and I may never see another one like him.
Matt Plavidal asked Mike's thoughts so far on Gilbert and Cox.
Gilbert, he flashes it that he is an unbelievable football player, and you can see it. I don't know when the injury occurred to Gilbert during the game, but he showed up big time in the first half. Certainly against Missouri, he's got great size, radius, can catch the football. LSU has never had a tight end as physically gifted as Gilbert. Cox has been a bit of a freelance guy. At times he looks well, other times he's out of position. And, again, you got to play your spot. You got to be a little bit more disciplined. All I know is the guys that you were playing up against at North Dakota State didn't look like them SEC cats. That's part of it. You can maybe get away with it there that you can't in the SEC. So he's got to be a little bit more disciplined with his eyes and not pull himself out of position. And he was one of them that was biting on some of that so-called eye candy.
Yeah.
He's not played as well as I thought he would, to be honest. I thought he would make a bigger impact on this team than he has.
Ask Mike, this is from Kevin Monjour. He said, has the early season success for Trey Hendrickson been a surprise for you?
You better believe it. I think for everybody.
Yeah.
Trey's a blue-collar, give you everything he's got. For old-time Saints fans, they'll remember this name. He reminds me, as a kid, I saw Eloise Grooms do it. Hokie used to talk about Eloise Grooms all the time. And he sort of reminds me of that type player. He gives you everything on every play. He hustles. He's got good closing speed to the quarterback. But, he just is always there trying hard to make a play. And you can't teach hustle. Either you got it or you don't. It has been a very pleasant surprise for this football team how well Trey Hendrickson has played.
Mike, I got less than 60 seconds. There's a bunch of people. There's a profile up at ESPN.com right now of Arch Manning, if you haven't seen it yet. People ask, I know I've asked you before, percent chance that Arch ends up at LSU?
I think it would be small. I wouldn't give that a great percentage. I just think Arch is going to go out of state. He's going to end up being the most highly recruited football player in the history of Louisiana because of the position. I thought Fournette was, but he playing quarterback here. He's an unbelievable football player, but I still think it's a low percentage that he comes to LSU. That's just my opinion. I don't know anything. Nobody told me anything. I'm just looking at it and seeing what happened to both uncles. His pawpaw went to Ole Miss. I piece it together.
All right. We got 2 years to figure it out. He's Mike Detillier.
No, he got 2 years to figure it out.
That's true. TheSaintsReport.com, MikeDetillier.com, and with us every Thursday. Thanks, Mike D.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate
All right, we'll see you. Hour 3. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.